Hello and welcome to episode 7 of The Life of a Kung Fu Master. This episode, I'm Matt, by the way. I forgot about that bit. I'm Matt, and if you're new to this channel, it's just me talking about certain topics that might be of value to yourself, and also it's about what life really is as a Kung Fu Master. I'm not some guy that sits up on the top of a mountain and meditates and things like that, except I do try. And that's perfect. It's about not being perfect at the end of the day. And we all, as long as we're trying with life, we're on the right path. So today's topic is about depression. And I do feel quite credible in talking about this subject after I feel like I've suffered with mental health issues, definitely depression and anxiety, since I was a young child. It didn't come about really till my mid-20s when I wanted to kill myself, or attempted to kill myself, ended up in a mental health unit for just over 2 weeks. And since then, I've had lots of different bouts. As I'm getting older, I've learned lots of different coping mechanisms to help me with it. As I'm getting older, the bouts of my depression is a lot longer before I go into what I call down this spiral. Okay, but when I do go down it nowadays, which is very rare, it often is probably a bit more worse than the last time, because I'm recovering and then you go back down. I look at depression a little bit like an alcoholic, and at one point I did have a bit of a drinking problem. I visited AA. I've got lots of stories to say, but today I'm sticking with depression. So yes, it is a bit like an alcoholic, where you're taking one day at a time. Okay, you're never too sure when it can rear its ugly head. Okay, depression is like a big cloud. Okay, and I look at it like it just weighs you down. I call it a black cloud, because eventually, the longer you sit in it, or the longer things affect you, your brain gets murkier and murkier, and you can't think, you can't even do stuff, and things like that. Just for the record, depression is definitely, I mean, a lot of people do jump on the bandwagon of mental health nowadays, and OCD and things like that. Okay, and that might be to do with life and society nowadays. But I don't know, if you've just had something that's gone wrong, like your partner's left you, somebody's died in the family, something, it doesn't have to be depression. Obviously, everything, a lot of stuff make us sad and things like that. Often in the mental health world, you will need to have more than 1 or 2 episodes. So I can't remember how many it is. A couple of episodes before they will give you a diagnosis as depression or whatever the mental health condition is. So anyway, there's loads of benefits out there. All you have to do is Google and look at the benefits and the remedies to help you get out of depression. But it's not always that easy. One of the biggest things that we're trying to do, definitely me as a mental health advocate, is to talk about it. But let's face it, guys, okay, how many of you who's watching, okay, really like to sit with somebody for a long time who just talks about themselves, okay, talks about how shit their life is, what's going wrong and things like that. What it is, when they say talk to somebody, pick your friends, pick your resources well. Okay, make sure it's somebody that's genuinely interested in your health. Okay, and speak up. Make sure you've got these people, and speak up when things get really bad. Okay, I know as a bloke, okay, and women are a lot better talkers than us. That's not being sexist, it's true, in my opinion. As a bloke, we tend to sit on things and suppress things. Okay, there is still a big stigma out there about talking about mental health, the embarrassment and things like that. You feel vulnerable. I know so many people from the army that have suffered with PTSD and depression and things like that. Okay, and look what they've done. I mean, I'm a martial artist. I've fought bloody loads of people in competition, pressure tested what the skills that I had or have, and I'd rather do that. But I still suffer from depression. It's not a weakness sign. It's not a weakness, guys. It's just a process that goes on in the brain. Okay, so when we are feeling like that, look at the benefits on Google, okay, or ChatGPT and things like that. Most of them say the same sort of stuff, but there's lots of different tools. I will be doing more than one video on this, guys. It's just my basic introduction to depression at the moment. But there's I don't know, listen to music, watch an inspirational film or YouTube video, and move, dance, go out for a walk, talk to somebody. There's all these stuff out there, so it's not hard to get out of depression, so they say. But when you're feeling really low and that black cloud hits you, okay, it's not that easy. It isn't that easy. What I sometimes say to people, okay, with myself as well, is allow yourself to get depressed. Okay, when you hit rock bottom, sometimes you have to reach rock bottom to come back up. Okay, and there's a reason you're depressed. Okay, normally it's a correlation of things, like the compound effect, if you like. It's a correlation of things. Okay, and you've taken on too much. Your body's telling you something's not right. Okay, so allow yourself to get down sometimes. Okay, if that's what it takes, but then don't wallow in it too long. Don't become a victim for too long. Okay, because you've got to, as soon as you've had enough of self pity or sitting there, do something about it. Put some music on or something, or go out for a small walk. Okay, one thing that really has helped me. Okay, martial arts is my anchor. I've always said that. We've got hoodies that have I don't need therapy. I have my kung fu sort of thing, because it's well known that people around here know that I've suffered from it myself. But martial arts is my thing. Okay, find something that's for you. Okay, oh yeah, the one thing that has helped me really is teaching. Okay, I've been laid in bed for weeks, well, a week at a time. Then, okay, and I'm at a class. Okay, and I've got to do that class because I don't want to let people down. Okay, so this is really important. Make somebody accountable. That's why I go and train into a gym, which I don't do anymore. It's good if you've got an accountability partner, because you're more entitled, you're more going to go and do that on your own. Okay, when we're left on our own, we are most worst enemies. Depression, if you do live on your own, it's a nightmare. That's why we need places like this. Okay, community. I get students saying that they're going through a bad time. Okay, and the hardest thing to do is actually get out the door and get back into training. Okay, but when you do, like when I got into that teaching that time I was just talking about, believe it or not, I felt so much better, because you force yourself to get out of it. And this is a really big tip. One thing, going back to this Nike slogan, which I often talk about, just do it. Not as easy said than done, but it's a really good slogan to have. One thing that I was told years ago, okay, which has really helped me a lot, okay, because I talk about being perfect or trying to be perfect and the art of perfection, you've got to lose that, guys, because you can't do perfect. But the biggest correlation, or the biggest gap you've got from being where you want to be, okay, that's where you want to be, to where you are now, the bigger that gap is, the more risk you are at getting depressed. Okay, so if you're accepting yourself and you don't want to see yourself on a high pedestal like this, okay, and being perfect at everything, okay, if you accept yourself for here sort of thing, I was going to say mediocre, but it's slightly different than that. Okay, but yeah, basically, the smaller that gap is, the less chance you've got of getting depressed. I hope that made a bit of sense, guys. So, as I said, when you are feeling really, really down, okay, they say play music. One of my favourite tunes, definitely for training in, I know it's cheesy, is Rocky 3, Eye of the Tiger. When you've got, when I put that on, I feel like punching, I feel like doing stuff. It's just when them tunes that really gets me going. Play that when I'm depressed, when I'm really down, and I'll tell you to turn it off. Because, as I often say, depression is a very selfish condition. If you think about it, all you're thinking about is yourself, your life, and things like that. And another great therapy is doing stuff for other people, be like me teaching sort of thing. But when you're like that, you sort of sit in it and you don't want to get better. You want to self-sabotage, guys, and I've talked about that a lot. Okay, it's like I don't deserve better. Okay, and a lot of depression is linked to your own self-worth. Okay, I know this. Okay, and again, another saying that I say a lot, which comes from NLP, is everyone's got their own map of the road. This, at the moment, is my map, my own experiences. Might be different for you, but hopefully you can relate to what I'm talking about. Okay, so, yeah, as I said, sit in it for a little while. When you feel like doing something. Even the fact, like, I can be sat inside quite a bit, and I go outside, it's like, oh, it's nice. Fresh air, trees are blowing, and you've got the weather on your face, whatever it is, wind or rain, and it takes you out of that state. Okay, remember, changing states, which we talk about a lot in the martial arts, because I need to change state from being this into some aggressive person that wants to do stuff to somebody, an aggressor. But depression is a state, if you think about it. It's a state that's affected by your brain and your serotonin levels in your brain and things like that, and dopamine levels. but at the end of the day, you can up that, okay. And there's also that something which I've never looked into. I say there's lots of different controversial things about depression. Some people say it's not a real thing. I know I wouldn't listen to them either. And it is as like the main thing at school of thought when you take medication, which I'll get onto in a minute, you're lowering or you're raising dopamine levels or your serotonin levels, okay, because they've gone, the chemicals in your brain have gone down too much. But that often results from stress and things like that. Okay, but if you're eating the right foods and things like that, which I'm not very good at, which that's another video in itself, my eating habits. But if you're eating the right foods, it will really help. Drinking lots of water and things like that. The obvious things like alcohol, drugs and things like that are going to help. They're depressant. They're not going to help it. I said they're going to help. They're not going to help. They will get you out of it temporary, but then you're back to reality afterwards. So yes, going on the medication. Medication is. I'm not a medication advocate, if you like. I don't agree with it necessarily, and I try not to take it, but I will take it occasionally. I haven't taken it now properly for about 20 years. I did have a bit of a spout probably a few years ago when I went on it. But yeah, medication, don't rely on it. That's what I'm saying. Okay, it's great when you're really down there. And when the times I've taken it, I've been like suicidal, if you like. And that's the time to take it, in my opinion. Okay, and it will raise. It takes a couple of weeks to sink in, mind, to be aware of that. Most medication will take a couple of weeks to get into your system, and it has quite a few side effects as well. Yeah, I don't know what this is, but yeah, it takes quite a few weeks to get into your system, but it will help you raise your serotonin levels and dopamine levels in your brain and things like that. So yeah, I'm not a scientist, by the way, guys. I'm not a doctor either. So when I'm talking about what's this hand doing? When you talk about serotonin, dopamine levels, I might get things a bit wrong, but I know the sort of, I have read up on it. I can't remember textbook stuff. So yeah, so medication's there. Okay, what I tend to do, if you're coming off it, be careful, seek doctor's advice and things like that. Don't just stop it, just cut it down a little bit and things like that. You get loads of side effects, but don't let that, not all the time, to be fair. Different medication, I've taken a lot. Different medication will work different ways, but the biggest side effects that I have is it played around with my orgasms and things like that. See, I'm honest. Okay. Well, just trying to ejaculate, if you like, which is a common thing, and women get the same sort of thing as well. Okay, so if that happens to you, I'm just letting you know it's normal. So yeah, moving on quickly. So yes, don't be ashamed of poor mental health. Don't be ashamed of getting depressed. That's the biggest thing, and I speak to people a lot on a daily basis from with depression and anxiety, and most of the time we think it's just us. It's not just you. Okay, we all suffer with the same sort of symptoms and things like that, and it is horrible. It is horrible. So I put myself out there, guys. If you are feeling really bad and you're suicidal and things like that, pick up the phone. Okay, message me or something. Okay, I'm happy to talk to you about things like that. I am what I call NLP qualified. Okay, which is NLP. What is NLP? Neuro linguistic programming. It really gets you. It really opened up my eyes to how the brain works. Okay, and our thought process and things like that is how we act. Okay, our thought process is often what comes out of our mouth as well. And just this is why I'm so strict on words. The words we say to ourselves, okay, have a massive impact on your depression and things like that. So if you want any advice, guys, please get to me. I have loads of coping mechanisms to deal with depression and things like that, which I talk about on other videos and things like that. So yes, so it's a perfectly normal thing. Not necessarily normal then, but there's so many people who do get it, guys. Okay, just be aware. Sometimes we have what we've done, looked into the business model. So growth of the fixed mindset, guys. When we look for growth, look for the solutions. Okay, we do become victims, as I said, selfish when we get depressed. Okay, I'm terrible. I will take it out on the people I love as well, the missus and things like that. Okay, or I just won't talk. Okay, but she understands that, and I won't talk for a while because I can't process stuff in my head when I'm depressed to be able to verbalize it. Okay, everything's shit. Okay, if you're with somebody and a carer for somebody who's depressed, listen to their language. Okay, I always call if somebody asking how I am, and just say, "Oh, I just feel shit." That's normally me getting a bit depressed. Okay, if it's constant and you can tell by the moods, I might say that on talking in general. I say, "Oh, shit, I feel shit." Okay, just means I might have a hangover or I might have a bad stomach. But if I'm constantly watch that with with not myself, with whoever you're with their the way they hold themselves, the way they're deep in thought and things like that. But don't push it. Okay, don't push it unless they're new to depression and you've got you have suffered it with yourself and you can relate to it. Okay, people will open up when they want to. Okay, it's a hard thing. Okay, but obviously then people submit suicide and things like that, which I hate talking about. But people do. I've been very suicidal in my time. So you've got that concern as well, which I fully understand. Okay, but just get them to promise you that they're not going to do nothing silly. Okay, if they're not talking to you, just ask them to promise. Okay, and make them try to give them a few without nagging and going into it too deeply. Just what is worth living for. Being grateful is another tool as well, which I find really hard. Okay, but since this year, I've had a bit of a year of being really unhealthy, physically wise, blood clots on the lungs and things like that, and I nearly died. All of a sudden, I've got a new appreciation of life a little bit more. I'm really working on when things are good that I'm grateful for, and it's a great tool. Okay, there's loads of journals that you can write in the morning and things like that. At the time, they seem pointless. And meditation is another tool as well. They seem pointless, but consistently, okay, it will have a great effect on you, benefit wise. And that's the thing. Depression often bites us when we're suppressing stuff. Okay, you're waiting too long. Something's happened, and it could be something very small, like something falls off that mantelpiece there, and that might throw me into depression. But it hasn't been that. It's been the correlation of things before then. So yeah, it is difficult. Okay, and so I want to talk about it, and the more people like myself talk about things who are supposed to be hard, and like martial artists and things like that, get it out in the open. And that's my bit about depression for today, guys. And I will do another one about different tools and things like that, because this is my field of expertise. Same as you could say I'm an expert in Kung Fu and Tai Chi and things like that, but I don't class myself as an expert. I'm just probably, if I'm willing to help people, if you're willing to help people, you've got to be one step ahead of what they're going through. And that's what I'm saying in my martial arts, really. Okay, otherwise people wouldn't come to me if I didn't know as much as them. But I have got quite a lot of experience in this. So remember, mind is the worst enemy, but also be your best friend. If it talks shit to you, just shut the fuck up. See you soon, guys.